There's two that I feel like each one answers the other one, and so I'm trying to find like a subtle difference of like the order of the parshas and the name, why the parsha. So Tazria should be something about purity, and it ends up being about the laws of purity.
The contradiction between the name and the content.
Yeah, so it's like Tazria purity, and then it's all about the laws of impurity, and then Torah seeming, and then it's all about the laws of purity. So that basically the order of the parshas is really impurity, like Gaulis and Gaulis.
Okay, but that you still have a problem with what's Tazria at the beginning. I mean, since the name of the parsha represents the notion of Geula, so the Rebbe asked, why is Geula before the name of the parsha that's Metzora? So you're right, it ends up being that the name of the first parsha is just a headline. It's like a general statement. Then there's the content of the first parsha and the content of the second parsha.
Yeah.
Right, 100%.
So,
yes. But I mean, there's still a question. I mean, there are two separate questions.
Okay.
Right? Yes, there's no question that one of them helps to answer the other, but there are still two separate questions.
Okay.
Content, name, and order relative to the name.
Okay.
Right? Okay. I'd like to try to get through the whole rest of the Sicha. That means obviously we're going to skip around a little. We won't read every word. Right? So the last thing the Rebbe was teaching us was about the Mishnah in Avos, right? And the Rebbe explaining what's the Derech Yeshara, and the Rebbe explained Rebbe and the Rebbe. The Mishnah is Rebbe, and the Rebbe is explaining the Mishnah. So when Rebbe says what's the Derech Yeshara, he's asking what's the Derech Yeshara to help bring about the Geula, because we're talking about Adam. And therefore he's on a very, very high level. And it's a synthesis of those two states, that which is Tiferes Le'Yosea, Shayach to upper realms, and Tiferes Le'Mina Adam, Shayach to lower realms. So did we see the beginning of the answer? Well, let's see, we'll just start there, then we're going to do some of ER outside and some of ER inside, and then we'll get to the end. Mayanot is on page 160. The answer, Koshi Tiferes Le'Yosea Tiferes Le'Mina Adam, Tiferes Kaya L'Torah, which we saw. We saw this paragraph. We didn't see the next one. Right? Did we see it?
This paragraph on the next one.
Yeah, we saw this one. No, we didn't see the next one. Right?
Yeah.
Shemitzad Goydel Malasa B'Keicha L'Chaber Beis Tenuos. The Torah is that which can bring about the synthesis of these two different tenuos of Ritzay, Kira v'Dveikis l'Kadosh Baruch Hu Tiferes Le'Yosea v'Sheiv Hamshach. I'm just reading this quickly because we say Hamshach Lamata, and that's Tiferes Le'Mina Adam. Sha'oris El Yonim, and therefore these very lofty lights, Yum Shekol V'Yizgala B'Kelim, will be drawn down and be V'Yizgala in the Kelim, and that'll bring about the Gula Shein Acharei Golos. Okay, that's the end of the paragraph I just read. V'Yesh Lo Hosif, we're going to add. V'Bir Hatam She'Hatera Tiferes Hiderech Yeshara. The reason that the Torah, which is Tiferes, is the straight way, the quickest way, these galus of Avas Mashiach, to the revelation and the bringing of Mashiach, Al Pir Yedua, Sheba Mashiach Tzidkenu Yeshna Beis in Yonim. This is an idea that the Rebbe talks about at length in a number of different places, because Mashiach is both a Rav and a Melech, right? He's a Melech mitzad David, but he's also a Rav mitzad his own Metzias, which means he's Shayach to Moshe Rabbeinu. It says Moshe is Geil Rishonu Geil Achred. Moshe is the first Redeemer, is also the last Redeemer. Moshe himself asked that be the case by saying, Shlach na b'yad tishlach, please send the one that you're going to send. In other words, make the one you're sending now the one you're going to send. So Moshe wants a connection to the last Geula. So Moshe is Moshe Rabbeinu, the Rav, and he's Shevet Levi. Mashiach is Shevet Yehuda, which is Malchus. So Mashiach incorporates both of those levels. Ultimately, he's from Shevet Yehuda. There's no question. That's what he has. That's where he has to be from. But he also incorporates within him the Inyan of Moshe, the Moshe Shebador, the Rav. So that's what the Rebbe says here. Why is it shaykh to Torah? Mashiach tzidkenu yishnem beis inyanim melech, a melech HaMashiach, v'rav sheyalamed Torah. It's kolam. V'achiluk shebeneyam. What's the difference in these two different aspects of Mashiach? She'inyan HaMelech shebeMashiach mara al hashpa ba'ofen makif. The notion of melech stands above the people and is mashpia. It influences the people from above, ba'ofen makif. Doesn't have a day-to-day interaction with the people. Shenasas al yedei habitul the Kabbalas ol malchusa. And what's the relationship between the melech and the am? The am's bittul, the am's complete bittul to the king by virtue of accepting upon themselves the yoke of the king. Inyan a rav, it's the rav. So the rav's hashpah is very, very, very direct. And inner hashpah, the whole inyan of the rav is to give hashpah. Oh, you have it? You have the sefer?
Yeah.
He has a safe item. Thank you very much.
Moshe's hashpah is very direct and very, on a certain level, very intimate. Moshe is connected, the rav is connected to the panimis of the student. Sheba Mashiach Mara al hashpah ba'ofen panimi. An inner hashpah, not something general. Shenasas ayidei limud Torah. It's brought through limud Torah. Where's limud Torah bring godliness into our conscious reality, into ourselves, mamish. Ad shechoshiv ki'ilu yalada, until the rav is like someone who gave birth to him. Elu b'neichem, elu talmideichem. These are your children, these are your students. V'yesh lemer. Shetzir of shneim, the joining together of these two different levels, melech v'rav, makif, the all-encompassing level, and the pneumistic level of the rav, yachdav mara shegama eres elyonim. This is the same idea. The eres elyonim, which is the makif, shelamaylim islavshis b'kelim, that are beyond being clothed in the kelim, and that means ki'im ba'ofen makif bilvad, right? It's something makif, something all-surrounding. Nimshachim u'mizgalim are drawn down and are ultimately revealed b'kelim, ba'ofen pnimi. It's the melech and the rav, and the Torah brings about that synthesis. Then the Rebbe says, now this happened to be said in Chodesh Iyar, as you see, is Vav Iyar, and the Rebbe talks about the unique qualities of the month of Iyar. Iyar is Rashi Tevis, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and Rachel, which are the four legs of the Merkava, of the chariot. Right? Iyar is a day, the only month of the year that has its own unique mitzvah every day. Iyar is, of course, the day of base Iyar, the birthday of the Ramarash, Tiferes Shebetiferes.
Counting Sierra?
It's counting Sierra. Iyar is also the month of Lag Ba'emer, which is Hoid Shebahoid. And that year was what was called a Shana Shlema. Pesach fell out on Shabbos, which means you start counting Sfiras HaEmer Meitzi Shabbos. So the Torah says that you start counting Svartim Lechem Mimachras HaShabbos. You should start counting the day after Shabbos. There was a machlekes in Bayis Sheni, the Tztekim, who didn't really believe in Torah Shabbal Peh, the Sadducees, they're called, I think. So the Tztekim, who didn't believe in Torah Shabbal Peh, therefore they didn't believe in rabbinic authority, so they felt that it should be read literally, Mimachras HaShabbos, so they would start counting Sfira from Meitzi Shabbos Chol HaMoed, right? The day after Shabbos. So they'd always start on Sunday, which means by them, Shavuos was always Sunday. Had to fall out on a Sunday. But really, we know Mimachos HaShabbos means the day after Pesach. Why it's called Mimachos HaShabbos? Okay, maybe we'll probably learn a mimer after Pesach that will help us understand that. But there are years if Pesach falls out on Shabbos, so then it's Taka Machos HaShabbos. You start counting the day after Shabbos. That means Yom Rishon is the first day of every week, and that means you're counting in order of the weeks. Meaning the first day of a week of the Eimer is the first day of that week. Right, so that means every Shabbos is Malchus Shebe, which makes a lot of sense because that's really what Shabbos is. Right, Shabbos would be the seventh sphera of that week. So this week was the week of Tiferes. So Shabbos is Malchus Shebe Tiferes. The day the Rebbe is saying the Sicha is Malchus Shebe Tiferes, which is what the Rebbe is going to talk about. Right? Okay, so I just went through Ois Yud I mean, what I said at the end is not an Ois Yud, but Ois Yud quickly, Yud Aleph, go to page 162. Rabbi emphasizes the union of Rochel. Rochel is the koyach of Yidden to deal with Golus, right? We all pass by Rochel and she cries for her children as they're leaving in the Golus and says that they're going to come back. She gives us all a bracha that we're going to come back.
So if we're planning to go back to Chutz La'aretz, is there an idea to stop by Chassidus?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's a nice thing to do. See Mama Rochel, she's a holy lady, but there's no such minhag per se. We're just talking about the Jewish people in general, because she's near the border. ויש להוסיף לקשר זה גם עם היום המיוחד בספירת סמל מלכות שבתפארס. So what's Malchus Shebetiferes? So what's Tiferes? What do you say Tiferes is? Torah. What's Malchus? Melech. What does that sound like?
Sure.
Melech and Rab. That's what we just said. And it's also going to be, how do you bring about the revelation of Melech through Tiferes? It's going to be learning in Yom Mashiach and Geula. This is the Sicha where the Rabbi told us that the fastest way to bring Mashiach is to learn about it. ובהקדם שבספירס האמר מחסד שבחסד עד מלכות שבחסד, from חסד שבחסד, I'm saying מלכות שבמלכות until מלכות שבמלכות, the 49 days, נכלולים is included כל ענייני Aveda, all different aspects of Aveda. Ma'aseinu v'avodeiseinu. Hein ben again nefesh adam, both relative to the soul of a person. L'sakin is nefesh is what we say in the meditation relative to Sfir Seimer, that we say every day when we count Eimer. L'sakin is nefesh to fix our soul, ruchoseinu v'nishmaseinu, the three different levels of the soul that are clothed in the body. L'tareinu, l'kadshenu, to purify us and to sanctify us. V'hein ben again l'chlolos ha'olam, and also relative to the world. Also in the same tefillah that we say after counting. Yushva shefa rav v'chol ha'olamis, that it should draw down great bounty in all the worlds. Shal yedei zeh ba geula mitis v'shleim, and through this comes the true and complete redemption. Shein achar golus, there's no golus after it. Harachaman hu yachzir lanu, and we say this also after Sfira. Harachaman hu yachzir lanu as avedis beis hamikdash lim kemer b'imheir b'yameinu amen selu. There's something unique about the way it works out this year. The beginning of Pesach fell out on Shabbos. Therefore, the beginning of Sfira, he mimachras Shabbos, is in line with the simple pshat in the pasuk. Mimachras Shabbos, gam kepshuta, simply. Neisef al drashas Chazal sheperusha mimachras Yom Tov. In addition to the drush of Chazal, which teaches us that mimachras Pesach really means mimachras Yom Tov. Right? And that's why we start counting Meitzi, Yom Tov, Rishon, Sukkot. In Chutz La'aretz, the night of the second Seder is the first night of Sfira. Because he made Machas Shabbos does not mean literally Shabbos Bereshis. It means Yom Tov. Sha'az a Shabbos is hein Tamimei. So in this year, so then the weeks are whole, Kimei Bereshis, like the days of the creation of the world. Meaning, again, you start counting a week of Eimer on the first day and you finish it on Shabbos, like a regular week. Shemaschilas be'echad b'Shabbos and Messiah b'Shabbos. You begin on the first day and you end up on Shabbos. Kishakev and since the completion, the kol shavua b'malchus, the completion of the whole week in the malchus of that particular Sfira, right? When you count Sfira Seimer, so it always ends up with Malchus Shebechesed, Malchus Shebegevura, Malchus Shebetiferes, which is the expression of that Midah in thought, speech, and action. That's the Malchus of it. The first 6 days are relating to the fixing of the Midah itself, and Malchus Shebe, first 5 days, and then the 6th day Yesod is creating a connection to that midah, to that particular emotional attribute. And the 7th day, Malchus, is the expression of that attribute in thought, speech, and action, because that's Malchus. Which is what you say every Friday night. Malchus peh, Torah Shabbal peh. Dibur, the expression of outside of itself. Mudgash b'yeser inyan geula b'malchus. It's emphasized very, very powerfully the inyan of the geula sheba malchus. Malchus beis David, b'tokfu b'shleimusa. the Malchus of the house of David, in all of its glory, and all of its power, and all of its wholeness, Al Yedei Mashiach Tzidkeinu, Al Yedei Melech HaMashiach, that'll be brought about through Melech HaMashiach, Shal Yodei Tizgala Malchus Shal Kadosh Baruch Hu Kol Ha'olam, that through it the Eibishter will be revealed in all the world. Revelation of the Eibishter's Malchus, through the Malchus of David. Vinyan Bezeh, Malchus, B'shaychus L'Geula, Melech HaMashiach. Mera, what's Malchus about? Al Chayzik V'Teikef, the power of the Geula. L'loi Hischashvus B'Manias V'Kuvim, without any consideration whatsoever of any obstacles. U'B'Loshen Chazal, Amar Malka Akar Tura. The king says you can uproot a mountain. Right? I mean, the king is all powerful. The idea of the power of Geula. Right? Shafilu Har, Tura. Teikef Menaged, the ultimate in opposition. Run into a mountain, it's hard to move. The mountain's in the way. Nekar, that mountain will be moved. From its place to another place. Al Yedei Melech. The Melech wants to move the mountain, so the Melech will move the mountain. Right? It's interesting, it doesn't say, they're looking for 97. It's an interesting language in Chazal. So the Rebbe points out, Kediyah Chaloshin Akar to it. It doesn't say he destroys it. She'enim Misbatel Memtziusay. Doesn't say that he blows it up. It's uprooted from one place to another place. Obviously, this is in Ruchnius. Transforming the mountain into something dark into light, which in this context, the mountain into something positive. The mountain, the obstacle. The mountain relates to the obstacle stopping you from getting where you have to get. In Ruchnius, no, you can uproot that mountain. The Melech can uproot that mountain.
Where is this about Chazal?
Where's the Maimer Chazal?
Yeah.
Baba Basra Gimel, Seif Amid Beis. Right? Is that right? I'm just trying to find that footnote. Yeah.
96.
Yeah. Amar Malka Akatura. Ubaimekesa, Kevin Shachayis from Metzias. I'm going quickly there because we do want to see as much of this as we can, right? And since the vitality and the existence of all of the people of the country, and all aspects of the Medina, talui b'melech, dependent on the melech. Right? The melech is an idea that we have a hard time relating to, but there's such a thing called the melech, and who's the melech? Everything in the country is shaykh to the melech. Every person in the country is a subject of the melech. They're bottled to the melech. Muvan shilamite shel davar. When the Russian Tsar was overthrown, so when word got to David Hader-Docker, who was a very, very famous chassid, a pnimistic chassid, so he said, now there's no mashal for Malchus. Now there's no people want to understand what it means that the Eibishter is king. I think you can vote on the Eibishter. All right? You can't vote on the Eibishter. You can't vote on a king. A king says jump, you jump. That's what you do. That's just what a king is. So he said, once there's no more king, so it'll be hard for people to appreciate what it means that the Eibishter is a king. They'll vote. Well, this one I like, this one I don't like. I'll vote for this. I'll vote against that. I'm into God and I'm the God. Malchus, Melech HaMashiach. Sorry. Move on. Shalamite shel davar loy shayich Messiah shel menaged lamelech. In absolute truth, there isn't a true existence of any opposition to the king. Why? In that country, so even the opposition to the king, is dependent on the king. It's his king. So it might be on an external level he's seemingly expressing opposition to the king, but his whole Metzias is dependent on the king. Right? He's a subject of the king like anybody else. That's an existential reality. He might want to deny that, but that doesn't mean the denial is real. Well, so too relevant to Geula. She'inyan malchus, melech HaMashiach, madgish. What's the idea of Geula? Geula is shaykh to a melech. So I was explaining that. It was very, very interesting because people, theoretically, it doesn't have to be. It should be Geula. What's it got to do with a melech? Why does it have to be a melech HaMashiach? It can be a Rav, Moshe Rabbeinu, right? Why is it have to be called a melech, right? What's the idea of that, right? Why is Geula relevant specifically to the idea of the Malchus of Mashiach? Madgish shalamite shel davar. In truth, Ein ha'olam, Golus, Yochel Lios Menaged L'Geula, that in truth, the world, the Golus of the world, as we experience it now, can't truly be in opposition to Geula. Kevin Shekol Mitzias Olam Talui Binyan Geula. Malchus, the whole existence of the world is ultimately dependent on Geula. Why might one say the whole existence of the world is dependent on Geula? That's a rather wild statement. Okay, so why is the Rebbe saying that? As if it's sort of muvan me'elav, self-understood. What was the ultimate purpose of the creation of the world? What does that mean? That's Geula, that's Mashiach, that's what it means. The whole world is dependent on that idea. That's what the whole world is. The whole world is ultimately a dir b'tachtonim. Has that yet come into a state of revelation to you and I? No. But be'etzem, what is the world? A place of unbelievable godly revelation. That's what it is. Right? I mean, when the Eibishter looks at the world, what does he see? Himself. He sees an expression of himself. He doesn't see the concealment that you and I experience. When Geula happens, you and I will experience reality in its truth, not in its falsehood. So even the Gullus is ultimately dependent on the Geula, because the whole reality of the world is dependent on Geula. It's the purpose of the world. Talu binyan Geula, Malchus, Kedisa b'Gemara, le'ivri alma ela le'Mashiach. Where's that? Let's just go back a little to footnote 15, Sanhedrin. Where else? Sanhedrin, Sati Ches, all the amazing Mashiach Gemaras in the end of Sanhedrin. Mm-hmm. Worth opening up and learning. They're just push it wild. Amazing Gemaras about Geula and Mashiach and stories. The world wasn't created, El Mashiach. V'lochin hanigud da'olam, the opposition of the world, the geula, and that's called galus. Ein el inin chitzeni bavad. That's only something external, as we saw in the whole notion of the tzaras. Ubitulei hu al yedei is galus inyene amiti shel olam. And the nullification of galus is through the revelation of the true reality of the world, which is Malchus, the Malchus of the Eibishter. That's what the world truly is. The Eibishter is Malchus. Ubizgalus Malchus, and through the revelation of Malchus, Malchus Shel Kadosh Baruch Hayidei Melech HaMashiach, the Malchus of the Eibishter is revealed through Melech HaMashiach. Yeshnam Kama Ifanim B'Drachim. There are a number of ways that this can happen. Now, a number of expressions of this, not ways it can happen. Malchus Kefishi B'Shivas HaMidos. Malchus, as it's expressed through the 7 emotional attributes. These are the different ways in which it can be expressed. Malchus shebechesed, Malchus shebegvur, Malchus shebetiferes, Malchus shebenetzach, Malchus shebehod, Malchus shebesed, Malchus shebemalchus. So now, what's Malchus shebetiferes? Because that's the day the Rebbe is talking. Valpima amarash Rebbe, based on what Rebbe says in the Mishnah, which was read on the day of Malchus shebetiferes, that Shabbos. Shaderech yeshara, the straight way, these galus abias Mashiach, he tiferes, is Torah. Move and Goydel ha'ilui, therefore we understand the greatness of Malchus to Shavua u'Shabbos zeh Malchus shebetiferes. Why? Well, the Rebbe is going to explain. Right? V'oid v'ikar. Furthermore, and this is the ikar. So the Rebbe says a lot. V'oid v'ikar. The Rebbe says that a lot in Farbrengens. When you listen to Farbrengens, you hear the Rebbe saying that a lot. I heard a beautiful story from Shana Pa'im. I still remember her name. Her name is not Pa'im anymore. She was a madricha in the Sem about 20 years ago. Amazing girl from Brazil. Her father's a shaliach in Brazil, and she told a great story. Her father took one of his balabatim to the Rebbe for bringing way back. And he didn't understand a word of Yiddish, but fine, still amazing experience in that room. So sitting during the Farbrengen, and they're singing, and he's holding up his cup and getting a l'chaim from the Rebbe, and he's doing it, and he's having a great time. He's got a big smile on his face. And after the Farbrengen, so Rav Pa'im asked him, "No, you enjoyed the Farbrengen?" "Oh, it's unbelievable. This is unbelievable. I never said anything like this." "Oh, what'd you like best? The Nigunim?" "Yeah, I liked the Nigunim, but they said, what, there was something better?" "Yeah, what, you like the l'chaim?" "Yeah, I like the l'chaim also." "So what did you like best?" He said, "Well, what I really liked best was the Rebbe is saying." I don't understand, because he doesn't understand a word of Yiddish, and the Rebbe spoke in Yiddish for 3.5, 4 hours. So she said, "What did the Rebbe say?" He He said, well, the Rebbe kept saying, he said, I didn't understand the Yiddish, but I got the basic point of everything the Rebbe was going to say. I said, how did you do that? So well, the Rebbe kept saying, V'oid v'hu ikar. Now here, it meaning furthermore, and this is the most important point, and it's talking in the context of an idea, and furthermore, this is the more. But what did he hear? V'oid, more, that's the ikar. The Rebbe kept saying, to do more, that's the ikar. You just have to keep doing more and more and more, right? That's what the Rebbe kept saying, right? V'oid v'hu ikar, do more, and that's the ikar. So the shliach said, yeah, you got the whole bringing. That's basically the whole. Yep, you got it. That's what the Rebbe was saying all night, in different ways, but that's what the Rebbe was saying all night. This guy got it from those two words. That's what he heard. Okay, he heard the truth. V'oid v'ikar, she'ein tzarich lahamtin. You don't have to wait lahemshech hashabosas the Sfiras Ha'emer for the continuation of the rest of the weeks of Sfiras Ha'emer. Kevin Day Malchus Shebetiferes. Because through the agency of Malchus Shebetiferes, which is the day you're standing on, right there, Derech Yeshara, which is the day we read the Mishnah of Derech Yeshara, Boriach HaTichain, HaMavriach Min HaKotzer LaKotzer. The Rebbe is relating to Tiferes in the Mishkan, so there was a bariach. A bariach is a bolt. It's an enormous bolt that went through all of the krashim. Went through all of the carrot. Each carriage had a hole, and there was a bolt that went through all of the krashim, all of the beams of this that made the walls to hold them together. Right? I mean, they were side by side, but there was also each had a hole, and there was a bolt that went in one end and to the other end, all the way through. That was called the Mavriach HaTichain, the inner bolt. Went from one end to the other end. Miroim HaMailis UMadregas, what does that represent? Connecting all different levels of reality. Miroim HaMailis UMadregas Ad Seif Kol HaDargim, from the highest levels to the lowest levels. Right? That's the Derech Yeshara, Tiferes, because Tiferes is the inner power of everything. There's Chesed on one side, Gevura on the other, and Tiferes is the synthesis of all of that. Nimshachim u'mizgalim gam pratei inyane malchus shel achrei zeh. All the different levels of malchus are contained within malchus of Tiferes. Tiferes is in the middle, right? Tiferes is of the midas. It's the middle, so all the midas revolve around the midah of Tiferes. So it contains within it all of the keiches of all of the weeks to come. Gam pratei inyane malchus shel achrei zeh. Also the details of malchus after is malchus shel netzach, which is Nitzach and Amelech, the victory of the king. The victory of the king over those aspects of the world that might conceal in some external way. Malchus Shebahoid, what's Hoid is the Yofi HaMelech, the beauty of the Melech. Melech b'Yofi Techazen Einecha, the Melech in his beauty your eyes will behold. A pasuk in Yeshayahu talking about Mashiach. Right, Malchus Shebayosoid. Yesod is the foundation of it, the connection to something, so that it's eternal. Chizuk Malchus ba'efen Yesodi v'nitzchi, the strengthening of the Malchus in a way that's fundamental, foundational, and eternal. U'Malchus b'Malchus, what's that? The revelation of Malchus mamish. Hagilui de Malchus Ka'Malchus Ka'Leilami. The revelation of Malchus Malchus, Malchus Cha, Malchus Ka'Leilami. Malchus Cha Daika, specifically your Malchus. Malchus the Ein Sof Shelifnei Tzimtzum, the Malchus of the highest levels of godliness before Tzimtzum. Hakshurim Keser, Pnimius Keser, which is connected to Keser, the very, very lofty levels of godly reality. Pnimius Keser, even deeper than that. Keser Elyon, Ihu Keser Malchus. The supernal crown is the crown of the king. Shenim sheches umizgala v'nases malchus kol ve'elam. Malchus cha, your malchus, which is basically understood in Chassidus. The Rebbe doesn't say those words here. Malchus de Ein Sof, right? The Rebbe does, but he doesn't. Malchus de Ein Sof, which is that aspect of Ein Sof which is going to express itself outward before Tzimtzum. That becomes malchus kol olam. That becomes the malchus of the whole world. That's when you say that malchus kol. That's what you're saying. You say a lot. Right? The highest level of Malchus comes down and becomes the Malchus of all the worlds, that which is revealed in all the worlds, Malchus Daika, specifically Malchus. There's no need for some sort of rulership against the will of the people. Why? Because relative to the malchus of the Eibishter, Am Yisrael accepts that berotzen. They accept it willingly. Malchus berotzen kiblu aleim. His malchus, willfully they accept upon themselves. Okay. Ubir, what's the derech hayashara? Lizgalus bias Mashiach hayidei malchus b'tiferes b'negei l'maisa b'feil. Now it's okay, tachlis. All of this nice ideas, tying everything together, saras and ER and the Sphira and the Pirkei Avos. Okay, so what's this got to do with real life? It always happens at the end of the Fabrik. Bir derech yashar lizgalus bias Mashiach hayidei malchus b'tiferes b'negei l'maisa b'feil. What does this actually mean? Bagdoma. Shekeven sheMashiach tzidkenu eimid lavei tekef umiyad. Since Mashiach is standing to come immediately. Aval adayin le'ba b'feil, but he hasn't actually yet come. Shalochin durusha, therefore it's required. Hishtadlus achreina, the last expenditure of effort. Seif levusha, like the tzaras, just the very end, the external of the external has to be fixed. Shall kol echad ve'echad Yisrael, every single Jew lahavias Mashiach. Every single Jew has to make that final push to bring Mashiach. Sricha liyos ha'pa'ula, therefore the action has to be loyal yidei malchus betara. It has to be not through malchus in its purest state, ela a specific expression of malchus. The malchus betara is in Yana shel Melech HaMashiach atzmai, which is the reality of Melech HaMashiach himself. That's Mistama Shaykh to Melech HaMashiach. That's his avodah. Ela al yidei malchus shebetiferes. What's necessary? Malchus shebetiferes. Kloimar, what's that? Inyane shel Mashiach malchus kefi shehu betera tiferes. Malchus in tiferes. That's malchus in Torah. Right? Kamor liu, as we said earlier. This is the famous Sicha where the Rebbe said the derech yeshara to bring Mashiach is to learn in Yana Mashiach and Geula, to become well versed in the reality of Geula, so it's part of your conscious reality as opposed to just something that's out there. Ka'amur, this is the Sicha that told us that this is when shirim sprouted up all over the place about Inyanim Mashiach and Geula, and we pay heed to it with our minute and a half every morning, or whatever, 40 seconds, whatever it is. Don't let that 40 seconds be enough. It's very nice, but it's not enough. Gamor le'il, shal yedei Torah. Right, I don't want to go there. Shal yedei Torah, that through the Torah, in Yoneh shal Mashiach b'Torah Rav, that through the Torah, which is the reality of Mashiach as the Rav, right? We said Mashiach is both a Melech and a Rav. Nimshachim u'mizgalim ha'eres elyonim, the Geula, you draw down the very lofty lights of the Geula, which is the Inyan Shel Melech Mashiach b'Torah Melech ba'ifin Pnimi. How do you bring Malchus into Pnimius? How do you bring Melech into Rav? By learning Torah about Melech. Make a synthesis of those two. Become a Rav in Melech. B'Pashtus, Tiferes, who in your limit Torah? Tiferes limit Torah. We said that a number of times already. Malchus should be Tiferes. Who limit Torah b'Inyan Mashiach Melech HaMashiach b'Inyan Geula shnizbar b'ribu mekamis. This is when the Rebbe said this line, and that's why it's in that different font. Limit Torah b'Inyan Melech HaMashiach b'Inyan Geula. Limit Torah b'Inyan Mashiach and Geula. That's what we have to do to bring Mashiach. That's what the Rebbe said, and that's why so many classes sprouted up relative to that particular idea. Right? But Torah shebechsav, now the Rebbe says all sorts of things. Where is this? But Torah shebechsav, in the written Torah, befrat b'divrei in the Vim, shekol svarim meleim b'davar zeh, in the Vim that talk about Mashiach, and as the Rambam says, when the Rambam in the end of Yerech HaZakah, when the last two chapters are Hilchos Melech HaMashiach, so the Rambam says that the notion of Mashiach is brought in Divrei Nevi'im, and the Rebbe is quoting the Rambam, Shekol Svarim Maleim B'Davar Zeh. The books are full of the references to Mashiach. In the Torah itself, there's a few references to Mashiach. In Nevi'im, endless references to Mashiach. U'B'Torah Shebal Peh, B'Gemara, right? The Rebbe says, U'B'Frat B'Meseches Sanhedrin, U'B'Seif Meseches Seita, the parts of the Gemara that talk about Mashiach. U'B'Medrashim, right? All sorts of Midrashim about Mashiach. V'gam, Ubemeyuchad, Pnimius Torah. In Chassidus, Achel Misefer Zoyar, well, not just Chassidus, we'll see. Achel Misefer Zoyar, beginning with Sefer Zoyar. What did the Rashbi himself write about the Zoyar? Shebahai Chibura, in this book, Dilach of yours, sorry, I think it's Rabbi Chia who wrote this, right? The Ihu Sefer Zoyar, that this is the book of the Sefer Zoyar, the book of brilliance. Yifkun Bei Min Galusa Berachmin, the Jews will be taken out of Galus in a merciful way by virtue of reading, learning your book. In other words, learning Pnimius Torah. Ubefrat, and particularly within Pnimius Torah, Teres Chassidus, Sha'al Yedei Afatzas Amayanis Chutza, that what was the Baal Shem Tov told when the Baal Shem Tov on that famous Rosh Hashanah, he said that he wrote a letter to his brother-in-law after Rosh Hashanah, that on this Rosh Hashanah he experienced a tremendous aliyas in the Shama, tremendous elevation of his soul until he reached a place he had never reached. He reached the Heichal of Mashiach, to the chamber of Mashiach above, and he asked Mashiach, famous question, Masai Kasimar, when are you coming? Right, and Mashiach told him, when your wellspring spread forth. Mashiach also said, and when everybody can do Yehudim like you, that's the part of the statement of Mashiach. The Baal Shem Tov thought that would never happen. Yeah, shalom.
Is there any reference to Chumash?
Mashiach? Yeah. Rashi says that the bracha to Yehuda ad shiyav Shilai, that the kingship will be yours until Shilai comes. So Rashi says Zeh Melech HaMashiach. The Parshas Balak is all about Bilam's Nevuah is all about Mashiach. Much of Bilam's Nevuah is about Mashiach. We look in the Rambam. So the Rambam brings the parts of the Torah, most particularly Balak, Parshas Balak. Mashiach Dafka comes from a creek named Bilam, right? Which is really Mashiach Bechlal is the elevation of the lowest level, and so Mashiach includes within it all these incredibly low aspects of reality that are elevated by virtue of Mashiach, right? Mashiach comes Dafka from Balak, right? Where does Rus come from? Rus comes from Balak. Rus is the great grandmother of David HaMelech, right? She's a Moabite, right? So Rus is the elevation of that level. Mashiach comes from Yehuda and Tamar, which is rather interesting that Mashiach comes from that place, right? So Mashiach is the elevation of what seems to be an incredibly low level to look at the highest level imaginable. There won't be an existence of those low levels. They'll all be elevated to a state of Kedusha.
Isn't that also the Rosh Hashanah this year?
What?
Isn't that also the Rosh Hashanah this year? You will sing?
That Moshe Lassi Lover will sing. It's amazing. The Rashi says Remez it's amazing that Moshe will sing.
Rashi also comments on when Yaakov says to Esau, "I'll see you in Seir."
Rashi says it be Mashiach.
I believe so. Yeah, because Yaakov doesn't lie.
Yeah, he definitely doesn't lie. That's for sure. But I just whether Rashi said that's the shot in the pasuk. I just don't remember Rashi Dafka saying that. But it's in Quran. It's in Torah. But look in the Rambam. Look in the Rambam in the end of the very, very end of the Rambam, the last two chapters. Now the Rebbe is about to say something that was shocking to everybody. Befrat b'Torah Chassidus, Shalidei Afatzas Amayanis, through Torah Chassidus, you bring Asimar, through spreading the wellsprings Asimar, Dam Malka Mashiach, that's Melech HaMashiach. B'Torah Shabbaseinu Nisienu, right? And the Torahs of the different Rebbeim, Befrat b'Torasei, Mamarim v'Lekutei Siches, Shal Nasi Darenu. Now that's a really wild thing for the Rebbe to say, because the Rebbe said, and particularly the Maimarim and Lekutei Siches. There's only one Rebbe with a book called Lekutei Siches, and that's our Rebbe. Now, the Rebbe never refers to himself as Nasi Ador, as the leader of the generation. He always refers to the Frierdiker Rebbe as the leader of the generation. But here the Rebbe said, and everybody got very excited when the Rebbe said this, because the Rebbe's the Rebbe, right? But the Rebbe never ever said that about himself. Right? The one time he did say about himself when the interrogation for the trial, when the lawyers were trying to prepare the information for the trial in the books, So Baruch Hashem, the Rebbe wasn't. They wanted to depose the Rebbe. The other side wanted to, cheapen the Rebbe and have the lawyers come and depose the Rebbe. But Baruch Hashem, the judge said that shouldn't be. You don't do it to a person like the Rebbe. So the judge understood these sort of things, which is really astounding.
That's wild. Is it true? It really?
No, I just made it up.
No,
when the lawyers were asking the Rebbe, when the Rebbe refers to Nasi Ador, who's he referring to? And the Rebbe didn't say, but he just went. He wouldn't say it, just went like that. Because it had to be brought out in court. Right? The Rebbe is a continuation of the Friedrich Rebbe, because the whole claim of the other side was Lubavitch ended on Yud Shvat. In Yud, there's no more Lubavitch. So now it's just a family heirloom, and he's the inheritor because he's the grandson. Right?
If he wasn't deposed, when did he point to himself?
His lawyers, our lawyers. What they were preparing, they were asking the Rebbe how to, what to do in court. It wasn't deposed means the other lawyers sit and take all sorts of information from the Rebbe, and when they did it to the Rebbetzin, it was a very, very painful experience. Obviously, the Rebbe's lawyers were the Lubavitch lawyers were very gentle with the Rebbetzin. The other lawyers were anything but.
This actually happened.
What?
Like they were lawyers trying to depose the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin.
Depose doesn't mean depose like you depose a king. It means lawyers go and get a deposition, information that will be used in the trial. So yes, they did depose the Rebbetzin. They came to the Rebbetzins' house and they asked her all sorts of questions. The lawyers for the other side also, right? The lawyers for Lubavitch were there at the time, right? But the other lawyers were there and they weren't very nice. They wanted to try to do that to the Rebbe, to cheapen the Rebbe, but the judge wouldn't let it happen. So, but when the Rebbe was talking to the lawyers for Lubavitch and in the trial, so the Rebbe had a kav of how he wanted the position of Lubavitch to be explained, and the lawyers the Rebbe was just saying emes lamite, right? And the lawyers would say, but we're going into court, and court is anything but truth, right? And we have to figure out how to do this in a way that it'll make sense in court, right? I mean, the Rebbe's line was to the lawyers, well, if there was no passing of the Friedrich Rebbe, how could there possibly be an inheritance? If someone didn't pass away, how can there be inheritance? Well, go explain that to a non-Jewish judge in a New York State court. Because there's a grave in Queens. Tell me he didn't pass away. Go explain that. So the lawyers are looking at the Rebbe going, how are we going to say that to them? So everyone's very involved in what they were, how it was going to go. I mean, the Rebbe sure went his way. Did not want them playing games. No, it has to be done a certain way. So at one of the things they asked the Rebbe was so they would have the information themselves, so they could represent Lubavitch in court. But here the Rebbe said it, right? The Rebbe said, everybody got very, very excited when the Rebbe said that, because there's only one Rebbe with a book called Likutei Sichos. Doesn't mean anybody thought the Rebbe wasn't Rebbe, but the Rebbe never said it. I said this to someone who knows everything, and I asked him if this is the only time. He said, no, there's somewhere in a Sikha, somewhere in the Mems where the Rebbe makes a quick mention of something similar. These people who know everything. Who's 25, 30 years younger than me. That's the depressing part of it. If he was older than me, I could always say, well, when I'm his age, maybe I will too, but it's going to be hard for me to know everything when I'm his age, because I was that about 35 years ago. And all of this is like and an example and a preparation for learning the Torah of Mashiach. Torah Chadashim iti teitze. Famous pasuk in Yeshayahu that Mashiach, a new Torah will come out of Mashiach. And the famous Sicha the Rebbe in Shavuos Tavshin Nun Alpha, the Rebbe talks about what's Pshat Torah Chadashim. There's no new Torah. It can't be a new Torah. What can Yeshayahu Navi possibly mean? Torah Chadashim iti teitze. So what's the Torah Chadasha? It's not Chas v'Shalom the Torah Chadasha. There's only one Torah was given on Siva, and in the year 2448, there'll never ever be another Torah given to the world. This is the Torah that's forever. So what's the new Torah that Yeshayahu is talking about? Is the Torah will be understood in such a way that it will be as if it's new. It's the same Torah. We'll just have insights into the Torah that we never had before. So it's as if it'll be a whole new Torah, which is the taste of that is Chassidus. Sheyilamed l'chol am pnimis Torah, that the Mashiach will teach to the whole people pnimis Torah, tamei Torah, the reasons for the Torah, the inner meanings of the Torah, yedias elokus, knowledge of godliness, das elokei avicha. David HaMelech says to his son Shlomo HaMelech, know the God of your father. Kipsak din a Rambam sheba'isa zman, like the Rambam says in Hilchos Mashiach at the end of the Arach HaZakah, the end of Mishnah Torah, sheba'isa zman you Yisrael chachomim gedelim v'yedim devar mastumim. The Am Yisrael will be great, very wise people, and they'll know things that were heretofore stumim, closed, concealed. V'yasigu das baram, and they will understand the knowledge of their Creator to the extent that a person can, obviously. V'yisafa b'limud Torah b'inyanim Mashiach and Gula, and the addition of learning Torah in matters of Mashiach and Gula, Malchus Sheb'Tiferes, he derech Yeshara. This is the derech Yeshara. Lifal is galus abiyas Mashiach v'Gula b'Feil mamish. How do you bring Mashiach? Learn about Mashiach. Where? Well, the Rebbe just told us where. We don't have to make it up. He just gave us a whole list of things to do. Va'al shel peil bas. That's why books and books were published with also. There's a beautiful chumash someone put out with Inyani Geula in every parsha. Beautiful. It's a big chumash, volume after volume, right? All sorts of inyanim on every parsha from Chazal and from Chassidus. Va'al shel peil basi, and I came for actual behavior. Bavada ye'ereru v'yafarsim b'chol makom v'makom. This used to happen in Farbrengens, right? The Rebbe's talking to his Chassidim and he wants them to shake up the world. So what does the Rebbe say? And this is what you get when you learn Sichas from actual Farbrengens as opposed to Likutei Sichas. Likutei Sichas, so it's a written work. But here at the end of it, you see what happened when the Rebbe was talking to his Chassidim. The Rebbe says, and definitely they will wake up and they'll publicize this in every place. Could they leave the Rebbe is saying to everyone, okay, look, you have a job now. What's your job? Could they leave these galus abiyas Mashiach teka from yad in order to bring about the revelation and the coming of Mashiach immediately? Al kol echad ve'echad misrael. It's incumbent upon every single Jew, anoshim, men, hein yesh ve'el, both those sitting and learning, Yisachar ve'hein balei esek, and those who are involved in business zvulun. V'chein anoshim, and women, v'taf, and children, kol chad v'chad lefum sher delay, each and every one in accordance with their abilities. Lahoisid b'limud Torah, to add in limud Torah b'miyuchad b'inyan Mashiach and Gula. Have a seder in learning in Yan Mashiach and Gula. Umatev, how nice, shalimud yeh barabim, basar, limud should be in public, not just alone. Ki neisef alamayla dasari sheyeshvim v'eskim b'teresh shchina shvuya b'neihem, in addition to the great loftiness of the fact that 10 people sitting and involving themselves in Torah, that Shechina rests upon them. Yesh Maila Miyuchedes, there's a special Maila, Kishalem Dim Inyan Mashiach and Geula Barabim. When one's learning about Mashiach and Geula in public, Benegei Lispilus Vasimcha Beregesh Alev, regarding the excitement and the joy in the person's feeling in the heart when people are learning in Yanim Mashiach and Gula, they get excited about the fact that we're it's happening soon, and they obviously in public people get more excited because they're together. And through this it grows. They're longing v'tzpiyah, and they're looking forward to be as a Mashiach. Learning in public will affect people more because they'll feed on each other's energy. Remember in the late Mem's early Nun, so when these sichas were being said, we had a yeshiva in Har Nof, and the Eli Tauger used to live in our neighborhood in those days, and he would translate the Farbrengen from the Shabbos into English, meaning he would get Meitzi Shabbos. He'd get it Sunday morning Israel time. Motzei Shabbos, the Chayzrim would sit down and write in Yiddish the notes of the Farbrengen from that day. They'd all get down and they'd sit together and try. They had to do it by memory. They'd write down by memory everything the Rebbe said that day. Sicha, the first Sicha, the second Sicha, the third Sicha, the fourth Sicha. Right? They'd write it all down. And then it would be printed. It would be printed in Yiddish. Someone would translate it into Hebrew, and Eli Dagli used to translate it into English. So he would get the transcript sent to him by fax, those waxy paper faxes in those days. He'd get a fax, he'd get a fax Sunday morning. They'd write it Meitzi Shabbos in New York. As soon as they finished, they'd send it to him. He'd wake up in the morning and it would be there in his fax, here in Eretz Yisrael. He would then translate it into English and send it back to them. And they would get it when they woke up. And then when you went into dollars, the women went in the front door in dollars. The men went in through 770, go through the main shul in 770, up the steps and around the corner to go to the Rebbe. So downstairs in 770, the men would be waiting in line, and on the table as you walked into 770 were 3 piles of paper, Yiddish, English, and Hebrew, the Sicha from the day before. You could see the whole Farbrengen from the day before. It was already ready. It's ready to go. So people would learn that Farbrengen as they were waiting in line to go see the Rebbe. So when Eli was finished with it, he used to give it to me, and I would take it up to our yeshiva. So about 5 p.m. Sunday, we would chazer the Sicha from that Shabbos every week. Sit down, put some Verbeisen on the table, and Verbrengen. Go, the Rebbe's Verbrengen. It was yesterday's Verbrengen. We'd sit and chazer the whole Verbrengen together. So I always remember it because of what the Rebbe says here. The excitement, there were times, Sichas, the Rebbe was saying that the guys would get up on the table and be dancing when the Rebbe was talking about Mashiach and what was going on and where we are and what's happening. It was unbelievable, especially during the Gulf War. My goodness gracious, it was crazy. The bombs are flying and the Rebbe's talking in Crown Heights and telling us, don't worry, everything's okay, safest place in the world, and we're seeing all these miracles happening. The Rebbe's telling us on Shabbos what miracle's going to be, and then that week, the bombs are flying, nothing happens. Guys were up on the table, dancing a lot. Why? Here, there's people sitting and learning together, something very exciting, so the excitement is contagious. V'oid ve'ikar, there we are again. V'oid ve'ikar, kapashut, lahoisi pekim mitzvahs behidr, to increase the performance of mitzvahs in the best way possible, and to be especially careful about the mitzvah tzedakah, klolos kol mitzvahs, which incorporates all of the mitzvahs. It's called by Chazal ha-mitzvah, the mitzvah. Shemekareves is a geula, that it brings close to the geula, the Gemara in Baba Basra, right? Ukedai v'nochai, right? And this is very interesting. This is something that people have done since this sicha. The next paragraph. Who could dive and noch, and the Rebbe says it's reasonable and proper. L'kasher esofer b'tzedakah, to connect the increase in tzedakah imay sofer b'Torah binyan and Mashiach and Gula, with an increase in learning Torah in of matters of Mashiach and Gula. How can one do that? Al yedei zeh she'er esofer l'tzedakah, by virtue of the fact that the increase in tzedakah he miteich kavana, is with the intention l'karev l'zarez es geula, to bring close the geula. Kaven, shekavana zu kishalatzma. This intention itself, he chelik milim b'Torah binyan gula, because the Gemara in Baba Basra. We'll just read the next line and we'll see. Halimud, that means learning. B'machshava mizman lezman. The Maimer Chazal, G'day tzedakah shemakareves is a gula, greatest tzedakah that it brings close to gula. Now you've heard all sorts of little Jewish kids. You've gone to people's houses or whatever, and when the kid puts push something in the pushka, they say G'day tzedakah, right? The parents will say G'day tzedakah shemakareves esageu, and the kid will go la, and put in the tzedakah. Why do we say that? This sicha. Rabbi said you want to connect the Heisaf and tzedakah with learning in Yonah Mashiach and Gula, so say over or think over every time you give tzedakah the Gemara in Baba Basra, which says that tzedakah is great because it hastens the redemption. So you're learning Torah about Mashiach, the Gemara in Baba Basra, right? There's all these good in the tests, Yud in Baba Basra, there's all sorts of Gemaras about tzedakah, amazing Gemaras. You want to learn about tzedakah? Baba Basra, tests, Yud, amazing Gemaras. So you say over the Gemara that talks about how tzedakah helps bring the geula when you're giving tzedakah, and that's something that everybody's done since this sicha. That when you give tzedakah, you should, if you can't talk because you're in the middle of davening, think Gedei L'Tzedakah Shemakarevis is a Gula, and if you can say it, so then say it. Gedei L'Tzedakah Shemakarevis is a Gula when you give tzedakah. That's why we say it with our kids. Let's finish the Sicha. V'yi Ratzeh. It should be God's will. Sha'achalota. V'kol hanal, that the proper decision, resolution in all of this, Timar with Tazares will hasten, V'tavi, teket from miyad, and will bring immediately. So tachlis v'mechuvan, the ultimate purpose. He's galus abiyas Mashiach, the revelation and coming of Mashiach, b'feil mamish teket from miyad mamish. Ubapashtu, simply, Shabbayim Shabbos Kedesh Parshas Sicha Tazria Metzora. On Shabbos Kedesh of the Parsha says Zriya, and Sicha Tazria Metzora, meaning this, the Shabbos the Rebbe is speaking on. Lifnei Kriya B'Torah, before the Kriya B'Torah, V'alachas Kama Lifnei Limud Pirkei Avos B'Mincha, before the Kriya Torah of Mincha, meaning the Rebbe is talking after Kriya Torah of Tazria Metzora, right? Because the Farbrengen was after davening. Right? Lifnei Kriya B'Torah of Mincha, and Allah has come Lifnei Limud Pirkei Avos of Mincha. Tied Leidas Vizgalas Mashiach Tzidkenu, there should be the birth and the revelation of Mashiach, Chivur Debei Rebbe, Kafishu B'Yem Tarasei, the Chivur Debei Rebbe as he is on the day of his purity. Shezeichim Lishmeya Hachroza, that we should be Zeicha to hear the announcement, B'chol Ha'olam, B'chol Seder V'Shtalshlus, in all of the world and in all the worlds. Shehine Zem, that behold this, Mara Betzboy V'Aimer, he shows with his finger and he points, V'Aimer Zeh, Melech HaMashiach Ba, Melech HaMashiach is coming, Hine Zeh, Kfeit Kedushas Meri V'Chami, my father-in-law, Admer Nosi Doreinu Ba, it's coming. Kaven Shekitzi V'Ranu Sheikh Ne'afar, because he'll get up and dance, those who dwell in the dust, the tzaddikim coming, L'tchiyah Miyad, and the tzaddikim will come back immediately, something Rebbe talks about a lot, that Tchiyas HaMesim is a 40-year process after the coming of Mashiach, generally understood as such. But who will come back immediately? The tzaddikim will come back immediately. All right, so those poor Yidden left in Gan Eden without all of the tzaddikim. So then they spend 40 years waiting to come back down. But everybody, the big tzaddik, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rochel, Aleah, Rabbi Akiva, the Rashbi, all of the Tanoim, all of the Amoraim, the Rishonim, the Achrayim, the Rebbeim, they're all going to come back right away. And no one will have who to forbring in Shabbos and Gan Eden, because all the people who used to forbring are going to be down here. B'kol Rabbeinu, the Sienu, all of our Rebbeim, B'kol Tzadikim, the Siyah Yisrael, all of the Tzadikim and the leaders of the Jewish people, Moshe v'Aaron imoim, and Moshe and Aaron with them. They're all going to come right away. Ubiyachad in Kol Bnei Yisrael, and together with all the Jewish people, B'nareinu b'zikneinu, with our youth and our elders, V'faneinu v'neseinu, our sons and our daughters, Oida kabetz alav l'nibotzev, I'll gather together, all of those gathered together, Mi Ashur, Mi Mitzrayim, from Assyria and Egypt, and Mi Iyayam, and from the islands of the sea, even Australia. Boiming ananei shmaya, they're going to come on clouds of heaven. L'artzenu k'deshet, to our holy land, liYerushalayim, Yerukodesh, to Yerushalayim, leBeis Hamikdash, shebayis beis tefili yekayla kelamim, a place of prayer it'll be called for all of the peoples. L'Kodesh HaKadoshim, to the Holy of Holies, Kamesh HaKosav, by Parsha Shekarim Tekef Mincha, as we'll read in the Parsha that we read immediately at Mincha. What's Achrei all about? The beginning of Achrei is all about the Avodah of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, and he comes in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Right? Bezois Yavai Aaron El Kodesh. With this, Aaron will come to the Kodesh. Kenisas Kohen Gadol b'Yom Kippur Kodesh HaKadoshim. The entrance of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur into the Holy of Holies. L'Lasid Lavei Leirak Aaron. Right? It says an amazing thing. In the future days, when we be Mesa Mashiach, not only Aaron, Elakol Echad ve'Echad Misrael Shiyeh B'Dargas Kohen Gadol. Every Jew will be on the level of a Kohen Gadol. Mamleches Kohanim. Right? We're called by Matan Torah Mamleches Kohanim, Kohanim Gedolim. V'Loi Rak B'Yom Kippur. Not only Aaron and not only Yom Kippur, Elagam B'Chol Shah Shiretz Likanes. Every Yid can go into Kodesh HaKadoshim whenever he wants. This should happen actually, means connected to the ground, and not something ethereal, not something conceptual. So such that we'll be able to bless on the birth and the revelation of Mashiach. Shechianu v'kiyimanu v'giyanu lizman hazeh. Wow. Every week like this. I wonder why the Lubavitch calls Meshuggah. And then what the Rebbe started doing, which is really very interesting, from this seat on, the next 11 months, the Rebbe was just explaining in Yan Mashiach and Geula every week. The whole Verbrengen was what's the inyan of Mashiach in this week's Parsha. Relative to the time, relative to the place, whatever had happened, whatever was shaykh to them. Okay. Have an amazing couple of weeks. I will miss you. I'll see you in a few weeks. We'll start.
Where are you going, Rabbi?
I'm going this Shabbos to the Rebbe, then to see my mother, then to do a couple of 4 or 5 days of recruiting in college campuses.
Which ones?
He's doing it in
Florida.
Florida.
I can just count on the weather.
Who will take over?
Mendel Zarabransky is teaching Shir, so please come, because I think everybody likes him. Pleasant, so please come.
Thank you, Rabbi Kaplan.
Look, Rabbi,
Question. What was the simcha that we just learned? What was the name of it?
Tazria Metzora, Tavshin Yirat. No. It says it Tazria Metzora. Tavshin 1991. Yeah.